Good evening. It's likely to add more congestion to an already busy street.
But the TTC says it needs to pull the streetcars off of Spadina and replace them with buses for several months of maintenance work. CTV's John Musselman is live downtown tonight to explain. John.
Well, Zerada, you'll be seeing a streetcar just heading north on Spadina right as we speak. Next week, those will be off Spadina, and they'll be using buses here because they have some work to do on the street. Spadina is already one of the busiest and most congested north-south routes in the city, and now it will likely get worse. Streetcars that run up the middle in designated space are being removed to complete track renewal work and modernize the overhead power supply. That means more buses will be added to the street for the rest of the year. The riders are expressing mixed views on this.
I definitely think it's going to cause more traffic than we already have, which is problematic in Toronto, as anyone who lives in Toronto, drives or walks or takes public transport already knows.
I don't think it's going to be as efficient as the streetcars right now.
I think it's going to be a tough kind of pivot. I don't see it being kind of efficient.
I'd rather it get fixed. Plus, we're going to get the other additional platform at Spadina.
Streetcar, if it stop, the rest of the streetcar stop.
If anything, I'll just walk down to Osgood and take the subway.
This is work that's incredibly important for our infrastructure to make sure that it's kept in a state of good repair, doing any overhead and upgrades that we need to do. But importantly, there's also other work that's being done. Toronto Water has some work being done in the area. There's some cityscape work that's being done for public realm. So it's a coordinated effort.
Here's a breakdown for transit users. The 510 Spadina streetcar will be replaced with buses both ways on Spadina Avenue between Spadina Station and Queens Quay West. There will be no 510 Spadina streetcar service to or from Union Station. Customers traveling to or from Union Station can transfer between the replacement buses and the 509 Harbourfront streetcars at Queens Quay West. And the 509 Harbourfront streetcar service will be increased to and from Union Station. The TTC says there will be customer service reps at key transfer points to assist riders. The Transit Authority also says it mailed out more than 23,000 notices about this change. And at rush hour, you're seeing between 30 and 50 people at some of the streetcar stops. So imagine what they'll need in bus volume to get people to their places. So it'll be a different scene here on Spadina starting next week. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Let's take a look at the forecast. Here's your shot outside. All eyes on the sky because of possible thunderstorms heading our way. There are also weather concerns north of us. Lots going on. We know this system is pretty much close to being here. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. How are things now, Jess?
It is starting to build and bubble. We are looking at a laundry list of watches and warnings making their way across southern Ontario. The heaviest of these cells right now is in northern Ontario, and that's where we're looking at a lot of the more severe thunderstorm warnings and some tornado warnings as well. We are still clear of any watches and warnings here in the GTA, but that can change very quickly. We're looking at a severe thunderstorm watch in towards Windsor, Chatham, Kent. North of us, so say towards Newmarket, Barrie, in towards Peterborough, they are under that tornado watch. That doesn't mean it's happening. It means they have the right conditions for it. Northern Ontario, and right along that border with Quebec, we also have severe weather, some tornado watches and warnings out there. So keep in mind, first we watch and then we warn. Watches are when we have those favorable conditions. Warnings are when it is imminent or currently taking place. So just keep an eye on all those alerts. They will pop up on your smart devices on your television as well. Temperature-wise, it is hot. We are at 30. It feels like 34. That right recipe of that heat at the surface and that cold front coming through, it gets a little bit messy. And again, you have all those things in place. If a tornado does pop up, you want to get to the lowest level of your house. If you're in a condo, if you can get to the stairwell and get down to the lowest level, that is what you need to do. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We will break it all down. But right now, back over to Zoraida. Thank you, Jessica. A warning from police and public health officials after a series of fatal overdoses in the city. CTV's Beth McDonnell will have more on the investigation into the possible substance that caused it.
Toronto police are investigating after shots were fired in Scarborough this afternoon. It happened near Birchmount and Shepherd just before 2:30. Police say they responded to calls for gunshots and found evidence of shots fired upon arrival. But police also say no victims were found. Investigators are looking for 3 men in connection with the incident.
Ontario's police watchdog has invoked its mandate after a man suffered serious injuries in a fall from a balcony in the East End. Police were called to a building on Dawes Road near Victoria Park in St. Clair at about 1 a.m. The incident was described as a person in crisis. The Special Investigations Unit says while officers were present, a man fell from a third-floor balcony and landed on the second-floor balcony below. He is in hospital and expected to survive. The SIU is automatically called in certain instances where police are involved, including when serious injuries take place.
A rash of suspected overdoses near Dufferin and Eglinton has Toronto police issuing a warning about potential harmful street drugs.
Police say they don't know what specific drug led to the deaths, and more of the drug may still be out on the streets. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
The 4 overdoses took place between Sunday and Tuesday in the Dufferin and Eglinton area and involve a suspicious drug. Toronto police are warning people who use drugs there could be more of this substance being sold or shared. Here's what we do know. 3 of the 4 people died from ingesting an unknown drug. The drug is suspected to be an opioid, but since the drug was consumed before police arrived, there is no description of it.
The number of deaths and overdose deaths has not been slowing down in the city of Toronto, and perhaps the division in that area wanted people to be alert, although Dufferin and Eglinton is a neighborhood that historically has had a number of overdoses and overdose deaths.
Zoe Dodd, co-organizer of the Toronto Overdose Prevention Society, says geography can play a role when there is a rash of overdoses.
It could be the batch that's there. It could also be the fact that that neighborhood in particular doesn't have a lot of services. There isn't a supervised consumption site for anyone to go to. There isn't drug checking in that neighborhood. So everything for drugs, that kind of the overdose prevention sites, the supervised consumption sites, that's all very centrally located.
Toronto Public Health says the illicit drug supply in the city is toxic and contaminated, with varying concentrations of fentanyl combined with other substances like respiratory depressants. When the drug supply is unpredictable and increasingly toxic, people who use drugs are more at risk of overdose because the drugs might be different or more potent than expected, said the city's Associate Medical Officer of Health. Police are reminding people who use drugs to be extremely careful and never use alone. Advocates also urge people to bring samples to Toronto's drug checking service and keep a naloxone kit on hand. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
We are learning more about a stabbing last night on a TTC bus in Etobicoke yesterday evening, just before 6 p.m. Wednesday. Police responded to a knife call on a bus near Barrie Road in Park Lawn. They say 2 male youths got into a verbal and then physical confrontation. One pulled a knife and both suffered stab wounds before fleeing the vehicle. Police say the bus operator sustained minor injuries. 2 15-year-old boys were transferred to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries while facing charges, including assault with a weapon.
Also in Etobicoke, homicide detectives say they arrested a man in the killing of his grandfather earlier this spring. On the afternoon of April 18th, police were called to a home near Kipling and Eglinton. They say 90-year-old Antonio Alonzi of Toronto was found with significant injuries from a stabbing, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. 32-year-old Massimo Alonzi of Toronto has been charged with second-degree murder.
And detectives have released a photo of a suspect wanted in an assault, mischief, and uttering threats investigation in the East End. On Saturday, June 8th, police say 28-year-old Sufyan Chowdhury of Toronto went to the home of someone he knew near Broadview and Gerrard. The pair had an argument, and Chowdhury is accused of assaulting the victim. It's alleged he returned the following day, and a similar series of events unfolded. Police say if you spot the suspect, you should not approach and instead call 911 immediately.
Still to come tonight, the battle over beverages and baked goods. A Toronto store owner fights to stay alive after someone complained to the city they were violating their business license by selling coffee. CTV's John Leathong will have the story.
It has been a whirlwind week for the newly appointed Minister of Energy and Electrification, Stephen Lecce. He was in Darlington today to announce the completion of the first phase of site preparation for Ontario's first small modular reactor.
But critics are less than impressed with today's announcement. CTV News Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
Stephen Lecce's first event in his new role as Minister of Energy and Electrification marked a milestone with the end of the first phase of a project at Darlington.
As we work to build small modular reactors to energize our province, our country, and literally the world.
For critics, it's a frustrating passing of the baton.
It doesn't make sense to spend billions of dollars on new nuclear reactors when wind and solar power can keep our lights on at less than half the cost.
Without the burden of nuclear waste. But it's a building block Lecce says Ontario can't afford to leave out.
This is a different reality than we were even 10 years ago. We are literally going to need to build more energy.
Energy demand in Ontario is going to climb steadily over the next 25 years, up 60% by the time we get to 2050.
We will not pursue a path, an ideological path, that will deny some forms of energy when we need all of them. We need nuclear and natural gas and renewables to be part of our mix.
It's pushing up output at existing gas plants, maybe opening more that troubles Gibbons.
That's going in absolutely the wrong direction when the world is on fire.
Nuclear projects like this are part of Ontario's long-term energy future. But I asked the minister about some more pressing concerns in a warming climate with more volatile weather. Forecasters have predicted a hotter than usual summer for Ontario. It means more reaching for relief from the AC as the temperature soars.
We're confident to have reliable and affordable and clean energy for families this summer.
The independent electricity system operator says Ontario should be okay for energy the next 2 summers, but may have to ask other places for up to 2,000 megawatts if we face severe weather. That's a little more than what's needed to power Ottawa through a summer.
We have time now to invest in the cleaner and lower cost options to get us off dirty gas.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
And a new report says provinces need to halt natural gas expansion and invest in electrification if they want to keep home heating reliable and cost-effective. The Canadian Climate Institute warns governments could be on the hook for billions of dollars in underused and overbuilt gas infrastructure. The report says for the country to hit its legislated target of net zero emissions by 2050, there needs to be a dramatic increase in electric building heat and a declining use of gas. The report's lead author says provinces must equip regulators with the tools to face the energy transition head on.
A proposal to strengthen tenant protections is moving ahead at Toronto City Hall. It would mirror a Hamilton policy aimed at stopping bad faith renovictions. That's when property owners remove tenants, citing they need to make repairs with the goal of earning higher rent.
Individuals who own homes live inside their homes during construction all the time. They live in their homes during renovations all the time. If you ask my 3 tenants who were evicted whether or not they would have preferred to have stayed in their house during the renovations, they absolutely would have said yes. And so a bylaw like Hamilton's would discourage landlords from evicting tenants when they could very easily stay by requiring an expert report saying that they need vacant possession and by requiring them to rehouse them.
We cannot build new affordable housing as fast as landlords could renovate people from good rent in buildings that have been stable for many years as a rental building, and it's just time to step up and make this a reality.
The Planning and Housing Committee approved an effort to see how a renovictions policy similar to Hamilton's could be implemented here. The requirements at the city level would be on top of provincial rules like right of first refusal to occupy units when repairs are done. The proposal will now go to full city council next week.
Meanwhile, the cost of renting a one-bedroom apartment was up 5.1% across Canada in May compared to a year earlier. That's according to a study from real estate company Zumper. Toronto remained the second priciest city, but actually saw a year-over-year decline in rent prices. For a one-bedroom unit, it was about $2,500. That's down 8%. For a two-bedroom, it was about $3,100, down over 2%.
A battle is brewing between a small corner store and City Hall.
At issue, the right to sell coffee, as officials say the store isn't zoned properly. CTV's Sean Leithong explains.
This small cup of coffee is keeping this small business alive.
We know that the store is not sustainable without the coffee service.
Yana Miriev is the owner of Finch Store, located on a residential street near Ossington and Harbert. They're in a battle with City Hall over the right to serve coffee and baked goods.
Before we installed the equipment for the coffee shop, I sent an inquiry, and the response was yes.
Once they received the go-ahead from the licensing department, coffee sales brought in more business, but It also generated an anonymous complaint to bylaw because the store is in a residential area and only zoned for retail variety. In a statement, the City of Toronto said in part, any change of use from retail grocery variety store is not permitted, and that includes store staff preparing food or drinks or coffees for sale to patrons.
I said that I cannot do that because it's a death sentence for the business.
And since that time, local community members have been rallying around the store with over 1,000 signatures on an in-store petition and another 1,700 online.
It just seems like a ridiculous thing to take away the ability to have a coffee shop.
I just feel like as a neighborhood, people should support each other.
You know, and I've had a bakery before, I've had a restaurant before. I know how hard it is.
According to the City of Toronto, changes could be coming to the bylaw that would allow places like this to sell things like coffee. But the question is, will it happen in time? Within their statement, the City of Toronto said staff is working on an amendment to the bylaw, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment as written would permit a retail store with the option to include an ancillary eating establishment or takeout eating establishment, provided that the preparation and sale of food and beverages is limited to hot beverages and low-risk or prepackaged ready-to-eat food items. But those recommendations may not come until the end of the year and would then need to pass through council. Miriam is allowed to continue coffee service while they wait for a hearing with the Toronto Licensing Tribunal.
It's very important when it's going to happen and if we're going to have the tribunal before or after the law will be changed.
So for now, they continue, not knowing if the city or the Licensing Tribunal will act first. And that could be the difference between thriving and running out of time. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
In Ottawa, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he's read the bombshell report on foreign interference and is slamming both the Conservatives and Liberals for not doing more.
I am more alarmed today than I was yesterday after having read the report. What is clear to me is that Justin Trudeau knew and didn't act, and Pierre Poilievre doesn't even want to know about serious allegations touching his party. To me, that disqualifies him as a leader, and I do not buy his phony excuses. Both Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre are putting the interests of their party ahead of the country, and that is wrong.
Singh also said the Prime Minister's lack of action has sent a message that he's willing to accept some level of foreign interference.
Meanwhile, the federal Liberals have released carbon pricing impact data just ahead of a Conservative motion demanding it. Today, Pierre Poilievre slammed the government over the findings, accusing it of hiding analysis that carbon pricing is economically damaging.
The economic hit Canada will take, originally reported at $20 billion. With inflation, it's $30 billion a year, or almost $2,000 for every single family in Canada, something they tried to silence the parliamentary budget officer from exposing. How can we believe anything this Minister of Environment has to say on taxes?
The facts are clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back from carbon pricing than it cost them. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, but the data also shows that carbon pricing is already responsible for the reduction in pollution level by 25 million tons. That's half of our emission reduction so far.
The Liberals say they were hesitant to share the numbers because they don't factor in comparisons that includes climate change costs or the potential for economic growth from climate investments.
A major agreement's been reached in Italy, where the Group of Seven has agreed to provide $50 billion to Ukraine.
The money will come from interest collected on nearly $300 billion in frozen Russian assets. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more from the G7.
In the middle of two major wars and re-election campaigns on the horizon for many of these G7 leaders, this year's summit a chance to project unity, and already there is some success in that endeavor.
Another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down. In fact, we're standing together against this illegal aggression.
The leaders around this table have agreed to a new U.S.-led proposal that would give much-needed military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. That support coming in the form of a $50 billion loan, paid for by the billions of dollars in interest accrued every year on the nearly $300 billion in frozen Russian assets Canada will contribute $5 billion.
We know how important it is to make sure you have the tools to continue to defend not just your country, but all of our democracies and the principles of the rules-based order.
The Prime Minister and President Zelensky meeting on the sidelines of the summit after Canada also announced it's sending Ukraine more ammunition, remote weapon systems, rocket motors, and light armored vehicles.
These are state-of-the-art vehicles built by Canadian workers in London, Ontario, and this summer Ukrainian troops will be trained in their use.
While the war in Ukraine dominated day one of the G7 summit, the war in the Middle East was also a priority, with the leaders coming together to reaffirm their support for Biden's previously released peace plan. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Bari, Italy.
A major victory for the pro-choice movement in the United States. The Supreme Court has ruled unanimously that women should have access to an abortion drug. The dismissal by the court was largely procedural on the basis that the doctors who brought the case to the court do not themselves prescribe or use the drug in their practice. The court wrote that the plaintiff's aim to make a drug less accessible for others did not qualify for a legitimate lawsuit. Despite the court's decision today, efforts to restrict access to the pill will likely persist as lobbyists continue to challenge the ruling.
More torrential downpours struck South Florida today, adding to a deluge of rain that fell on parts of the state this week. Flood watches or warnings have been issued for a region where 8 million people live. Some areas were at risk of life-threatening flooding. North Miami Beach was near the top of the list for rainfall today. It received over 50 centimeters since Monday. The slow-moving tropical depression is expected to linger over the state until early Saturday before moving out to sea.
In Europe, Greece continues to swelter under unseasonably high temperatures. People in Athens sought relief in the sea today. Authorities there are providing air-conditioned areas to the public and have issued fans to high schools where exams are being held. Temperatures were expected to exceed 40 degrees in much of central and southern parts of the country today. The weather is expected to cool tomorrow and Saturday.
Coming up, increasing access to valuable vaccines for older Ontarians. Why there are calls for pharmacists to expand the range of shots they can give in hopes of keeping seniors safer.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, thieves have been stealing packages off porches for some time, but now there's a new scam. Criminals are ordering expensive products, sending them to your home, and then stealing them. It's called the double-decker scam. I'll have my reports just ahead.
Heat and humidity have really settled in, and as we step in towards the end of the weekend, we're looking at this surge of really warm air, and by the time we get to Monday, you're looking at temperatures climbing into the 30s. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast to break down the active weather today and the sunshine tomorrow.
The surge in online shopping led to an unfortunate crime. Porch pirates stealing packages delivered to your home.
In the past, it's usually been a random act of theft, but now it appears thieves are actually ordering the items they plan to steal. Pat Foran explains on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Zoraida and Nathan, criminals used to steal credit cards and order packages and send them wherever they wanted to, but now that's harder to do. Now they hack your credit card number, send something to your home, and try to steal it before you notice. Criminals have devised a new way to steal packages off your doorstep. It starts with something being delivered to your home that you weren't expecting.
Then I found out it was a Mac notebook and that it was $4,900 and it had somebody else's name on it, but our address.
Denise Bayerjean of Etobicoke was surprised when a MacBook Pro showed up on her doorstep. Her husband then noticed there was a pending charge for it on their Costco account. Not long after, someone came to their home to pick it up.
The Uber driver said, I have a requisition to pick up a package here that was sent to the wrong address. And I said, you can't have this package because we're on the hook for $5,000 for it.
Concerned, Bayerjean contacted Costco and the police. It appears someone ordered the package with the couple's credit card information through their Costco account. Once it was delivered, thieves planned to take it, but Bayerjean brought it inside before they could.
They were waiting that no one was going to be home at our house, and they were going to steal this package. And I think our house was being watched.
The thing about fraud is that in many cases, we never know how the financial information is stolen.
Claudio Popa, a cybersecurity expert, says it's a new twist on an old scam. It's called the double-decker scam because now thieves need to hack two sources of information to make it work.
It used to be called a dropship scam or fraud, and now they call them double-decker simply because they steal one piece of identity and one piece of financial information, and they put them together.
In the case of the laptop, Costco took it back and the couple did not incur any charges. Buyer Jean says she wanted to warn others what happened in case a strange package shows up at your door.
Other people should be very aware not to hand over a package that has somebody else's name on, even if it has your address.
And it's important to bring packages in as soon as you can. Also use different passwords for your various accounts in case one does get hacked. And keep a close eye on your bank account and credit card statements for suspicious activity. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
So far out there, when you look outside, it doesn't seem, it's just hot and it's humid. Little, though, do we know just to the north of us, it's pretty active.
Yeah, it's the calm before the storm. And, seeing your green board, I see all that stuff. That's the only way that I know that a storm is on the way.
Lots of stuff
There's
on it.
a lot going on. And I've had people ask me throughout the day, it's like you see that chance of showers in the icons, but you really have to go to the radar to be able to see what's happening. So it's kind of that slow but steady climb towards what is going to be a pretty fast and furious situation. These systems come very quickly. They go very quickly, but they can be extremely intense. So keep an eye on all the weather alerts because they are popping up all over the place. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Now, it's beautiful outside right now. Still lots of sunshine out there. Folks down at Nathan Phillips Square getting their selfies in with the Toronto sign. But things are going to change. It is getting really windy. It's really hot. So when you have warm air at the surface, changeable winds, those really gusty winds, and cooler air aloft, that cold front coming through, those are the perfect ingredients for some pop-up summer thunderstorms. Areas in northern Ontario and right along that border with Quebec, they are dealing with the intensity right now. And then we're looking at a line of showers that will impact us here in the GTA. Currently, Toronto, the GTA, not under any watches, warnings, or statements, but again, that can change very quickly. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in towards Windsor, Chatham, Kent, and quite literally anywhere north or east of us, they are under some watch or warning of some sort. In the orange, that is for the tornado watch. In the red, that is for the tornado warning. The watch means we have the right conditions for it. The warning means it is imminent or there's evidence of it potentially taking place. So we'll keep a close eye on all of that. Right now, areas north of us, they're experiencing that rain. As we head in towards the rest of our evening, the wind is really also going to be a part of this story. They're sustained right now out of the southwest at about 44 kilometers an hour, but those gusts are much higher. Temperature-wise, it is also super hot. We are at 30. It feels like 35. Winds are much the same. Out towards eastern Ontario, they're also feeling the heat. So as this system kind of makes its way across and it couples with that cold front, again, that intersection can be dangerous at times. Tonight, though, really as we get past midnight, the bulk of it clears out. So for the downtown core of the GTA, timing-wise, really between 8 p.m. and about midnight is the window for us. After we get past that, it's just a whole lot of cloud cover and warmth. We'll be sitting at 19. We should be at 14. The showers linger in eastern Ontario. I know there is a CFL game tonight there in Ottawa. It could be really challenging for the folks going to that game. Into the day tomorrow, it's like it never happened. After the cold front goes through, it cools things down, and we get back towards a much more seasonal point. We'll sit at 24. We should be around there, but it'll still feel like 27. And really across southern Ontario, between about 22 and 24 degrees, a little cooler through Owen Sound. There is the meat and potatoes of it. It's right up there. As it sinks its way through for the rest of our evening, we'll see it slice through. It pushes those showers across, and then it's gone. Like it never happened. Those summer thunderstorms happen so fast. Right now, up towards, say, areas through Owen Sound, Parry Sound, Huntsville, they're getting it. As we head in towards about 7 o'clock, it starts to migrate towards us. In and about 8:30 is when it starts to creep into the GTA, heavier up towards Peterborough, Bancroft. We get in towards 9 p.m. That's when it's really over us. And then as we get past that, is gone and into the day tomorrow. Really quite beautiful as we head throughout the day with a whole lot of sunshine and significantly lighter winds. So it's a lot, right? Timing wise, again, this is more of an early evening through to about midnight, and then we get into a whole lot of sunshine. Temperature wise, very seasonal into the day tomorrow. This carries us into the start of our weekend. And then on Father's Day, for your dad or the father figure in your life, or just because it's Sunday, beautiful. 28 for the high. 18 for the low. And then as we step into next week, those 32s and 33s, they put us into heat warning criteria. So likely they will pop up as we get a little bit closer. But the humidex values are where it gets really challenging. It will feel into the 40s for a good portion of next week. So keep that in mind. We love the heats. We love the summertime, but you have to enjoy it safely. Make sure you have water, sun protection, and check on those vulnerable people in your life. It's a lot there, Zoraida, but I'll send things back over to you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Still ahead tonight, new research suggests blood transfusions could be the key to help people suffering from traumatic brain injuries.
For Canadians over age 50, newer vaccines mean better ways to protect themselves from serious illnesses like RSV.
But access to those shots can be complex and expensive. We get the details from our health reporter, Pauline Chan.
After her husband Jeff was hospitalized with shingles, Allison George was keen to get the Shingrix vaccination, but she was too young to have the 2-dose immunization covered by OHIP.
I recognize that some people can't just drop the money required to take that vaccination. I just felt we could afford it, and it was just something that I didn't want to go through that discomfort that my husband did.
It depends on where you go. Probably, I'd say around $330 to $350. For the 2 doses. So that is a chunk of change.
Dr. Christine Palme says OHIP only covers adults aged 65 to 70 for the shingles vaccine, and for the RSV vaccine or RexV, only those 60 and older who live in long-term care or are immunocompromised can get the shot for free. Sometimes employee health benefits will cover all or part of the cost, but sometimes you need a prescription issued by a physician or, as of last fall, a registered nurse.
So a lot of the private drug plans do recognize the fact that preventative measures like immunization provide a really good return on investment. And with that, they make it what's called a funded benefit.
But a significant number of Ontarians don't have a family physician, and adding to the confusion, pharmacists can give out free influenza and COVID vaccinations, yet they don't have access to the OHIP-covered shingles vaccine, only the ones outside the covered age group.
We've been long requesting the opportunity to fully participate in Ontario's publicly funded programs and to be considered both, an administrator, but also a prescriber for any of those vaccines that require prescriptions. Whether you needed your tetanus booster, whether you needed your pertussis vaccine in pregnancy, whether you needed, your flu, COVID, RSV, pneumonia, and shingles shot.
Dr. Palme supports giving pharmacists the ability to prescribe certain vaccines to help ease the health system.
If NACI makes a recommendation for a particular vaccine, that it gets covered. That's probably not the reality given the current state of affairs with the healthcare system. But certainly expansion of the program to include 50-plus patients who perhaps are at more risk of shingles.
And the cost of not getting vaccinated is very real for Allison George and her husband, who did get his shingles vaccination after he recovered, even though he too had to pay out of pocket. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
With the official start of summer just a week away, Toronto Public Health is urging residents to take precautions against West Nile virus. West Nile is an illness transmitted through the bite of an infected mosquito that can cause fever, nausea, and a range of other symptoms. It can pose a higher risk to older people and those with weakened immune systems. Last year, officials say there were 23 confirmed human cases of the disease in this city. Among the steps you can take to stay safe from West Nile virus, Toronto Public Health says it's a good idea to wear mosquito protective clothing, light colors, long sleeves, and pants, especially at dusk and dawn. You can also apply insect repellent approved by Health Canada and take steps to remove standing water from properties.
A new Canadian study on traumatic brain injuries is linking a key practice during hospitalization to better patient outcomes. Experts say most people hospitalized from a traumatic brain injury suffer from anemia. That means their blood is transporting less oxygen to their brains at a time when they're most vulnerable. Researchers at University Laval analyzed data on more than 700 patients. Half were given blood transfusions when their levels dropped. The others were given a steady supply of blood to keep levels steady. The authors found those proactively given blood regained more independence and reported a better quality of life 6 months after the injury. The findings were published in the New England Journal of Medicine.
chow and chow down.
It's one of the city's biggest summer festivals and will give you a taste of the taste of Little Italy.
He's on CP24 Breakfast, where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
I think it's going to be a tough kind of pivot. I don't see it being kind of efficient.
I'd rather it get fixed. Plus, we're going to get the other additional platform at Spadina.
Updating our top stories, get ready for even more congestion on the streets downtown as the TTC announces streetcars will be replaced by buses along Spadina for the next several months. The TTC says the move is needed to allow for track work and upgrades to the power supply.
It could be the batch that's there. It could also be the fact that that neighborhood in particular doesn't have a lot of services. There isn't a supervised consumption site for anyone to go to.
A warning from police and public health officials tonight after a series of fatal overdoses in the area of Eglinton and Dufferin. It could take some time to determine exactly what the substance was that led to the overdoses.
Before we installed the equipment for the coffee shop, I sent an inquiry, and the response was yes.
And a Toronto convenience store owner is locked in a battle with the city over her business license. At issue, should she be allowed to sell coffee? She says the city okayed the sale, but after an anonymous complaint, bylaw officers got involved. A petition's been started to help save the store from shutting down.
Remember to follow us on social media and keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
Oil continues to steady after a sell-off this month, and OPEC is cranky about a forecast that the world is headed for a major surplus of crude. Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the latest in business.
Hello there. Oil held above $78 US a barrel for most of the day, up from less than $74 last week, after Russia agreed to dial back its production. Meanwhile, OPEC is once again hitting out on forecasts of a looming peak in consumption. The International Energy Agency this week predicted that oil demand will plateau this decade and leave a, quote, major surplus. But the OPEC Secretary General, Haitham Al-Ghais, said, quote, that's a dangerous commentary, especially for consumers, and would only lead to energy volatility on a potentially unprecedented scale. On the markets, the Canadian dollar was at 72.79 US cents, down a fraction. WTI oil, North America's crude benchmark, traded at $78.26, up 11 cents. Western Canadian Select oil was at $64.65, up 60 cents. And the TSX Composite ended at 21,698.11, down just over 263 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
One of the world's biggest tech conferences is leaving Toronto after 5 years. The Collision Summit will be hosted for the last time in the city next week. The conference showcases startups and business heavyweights and has been held in Toronto since 2019. Organizers announced that they will launch a new North American flagship event in Vancouver next year. The event brought nearly $190 million in economic impact to Toronto during its in-person events in 2019, 2022, and 2023.
It's pretty much a must-win for the Edmonton Oilers tonight, down 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final. The home team will be looking for an extra boost from their fans.
Yeah, I think it's going to be special, but we got to give them a reason to be special, right? We have to come out and put our game in order and find our game early and just be better really than last night. So excited to be back at home in front of our fans.
Like I said after game 2, we had plenty of opportunities to score and 3 goal posts. If those go in, it's a different game, and it's we're talking about how good the power play is rather than is it struggling. So, there's things that we can do better. They're doing some good things that are making it difficult for us.
The Oilers have a couple of injury question marks for tonight, including Darnell Nurse and Evander Kane. The Florida Panthers know Rogers Place will be rocking, but are planning to focus on their game.
Obviously, they have really good fans and support their team really well here, and obviously it's going to be really loud in there. And these are the games you dream of playing in, and it's going to be awesome.
Obviously, we're focused on what we do best, and they're going to be over there focused on what they do best. And I think obviously they're going to try to, use their crowd and use how loud this building's going to be. But again, each game's different, so expect a different, way of playing.
The Panthers were also on the ice today, getting ready for tonight's pivotal game in the series. Florida captain and Selke Trophy winner Alexander Barkov will play after taking a hit to the jaw in Game 2. And CTV National News Chief anchor Omar Spadina is in Edmonton and spoke to a former coach of one of the Oilers who will be counted on to turn the series around.
Tonight's Game 3 against the Florida Panthers is pivotal, but the Oilers have a clear advantage tonight, playing on home ice for the first time in this final, surrounded by thousands of fans here in Edmonton. Everywhere you go in the city, there is a sense of excitement about the possibility of the Stanley Cup's return to the city. The last time the Oilers won was in 1990. Oilers goalie Stuart Skinner wasn't even born then. This afternoon, I spoke to his former high school hockey coach who always knew the now 25-year-old would be a star someday. In fact, it was during math class that Skinner himself predicted his success.
One of my best friends at Louis St. Laurent, Ty Nasalawa, taught him math. And all of a sudden, Ty's looking over and Stewie's at the back of the class with all the hockey boys. They're writing a math test, and he's done early and just sees him scribbling all over the page. It's like, Stewie, what are you doing? Like, you got lots more time left. He's like, Coach, I'm done. Don't worry about it. And he's like, well, what are you writing on your page? He was practicing his signature. And then he said, hey, Mr. Nasalawa, this will be worth something someday, so better keep this test.
For current students and players at the same school, knowing they now play on the same ice Skinner once did makes them believe their own hockey dreams can come true.
I think he's an inspiration for any kid in the Edmonton area. Like, if he could do it, I feel like anyone can.
And in case you're wondering, Skinner's former coach told me that math teacher never ended up saving any of those signatures, which probably would have been worth something today. Omar Spadina, CTV News, Edmonton.
It was 5 years ago tonight that the Toronto Raptors made history. They became the first franchise outside the U.S. to win the NBA championship. The city erupted in jubilation after the Raptors knocked off the Golden State Warriors in Game 6 of the finals. Toronto captured the title after an impressive playoff run with big plays from Kawhi Leonard, who was named Finals MVP. The celebration downtown continued into the early hours of the morning.
Wimbledon will be serving up a record amount of prize money this year. The total purse will be about $64 million. That's nearly $7 million more than last year, an increase of almost 12%. And twice the amount handed out to competitors at the Grass Court Grand Slam 10 years ago. The singles champion will each earn close to $3.5 million next month. The All England Club says ticket demand has never been greater. The tournament begins July 1st.
Euro 24 kicks off tomorrow with the host German team taking on Scotland, and a new football soothsayer has made her prediction. Bobby lives at a reserve in central Germany and was tasked with choosing who she thinks will win the match in Munich. Bobby had to kick a ball toward the flags of both countries that were on either side of the makeshift goal, and the ball rolled toward the flag of her adopted home. Germany went out in the round of 16 at Euro 2021. Scotland is looking to reach the knockout stage for the first time. The final of the month-long European Championship is July 14th.
Just ahead, Toronto's burger business is given a shake with the arrival of Shake Shack. We get a taste of the new fast food joint in the belly of the downtown core.
Tonight, live from Edmonton for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
It's going to be special, but we got to give them a reason to be special, right?
The Oilers dig deep and search for a comeback on home ice. Later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. You can also listen to the show live on News Talk 1010.
Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Popular U.S. burger chain Shake Shack officially made its Canadian debut at Yonge and Dundas.
1, 2, 3, cut! All the way through!
Shake Shack opened in New York in 2004, gaining fans of its smash burgers, crinkle-cut fries, and shakes. But the chain has outlined a few Canada-specific offerings on its menu, including the maple salted pretzel shake and the I Heart Butter Tart Concrete, their word for custard. Customers at the newly opened location share their reasons for stopping by today.
We planned this ever since we found out they were opening up specifically today. So we're like, okay, why not? Let's just go. We had a free day, nice weather, why not, right?
It was good. I loved it when I was in New York. Simple, delicious. The milkshakes are the bomb.
Shake Shack has outlined plans to open 35 locations on this side of the border over the next 10 years. I have to admit, I am hungry, and that did look good.
That looks good. Meanwhile, Mother Nature is shaking things up.
She is. It's going to be an interesting evening. We have the right conditions for severe weather right across a good portion of southern and northern Ontario. But as we see things come to fruition, we'll start to see those watches and warnings migrate. For now, we are looking at heavier showers north of us. So say along Owen Sound, Parry Sound, and we're watching the watches and warnings expand right before our eyes. It's now pushed in towards Kitchener, London, and we're seeing these expand as the system gets even closer to us. The areas in red, that's what you want to look at right now. Those are tornado warnings, not anywhere near us, but we are keeping a close eye on all of that. Again, if a warning ever pops up in your area, take shelter immediately in the lowest level of your home and away from any windows. Temperature-wise, it is hot. We are at 30. It feels like 35. And as we step in towards at least the end of the week, we return to seasonal temporarily before a small but intense heat wave moves in just in time for Monday with humidex values into the 40s, guys. So just heads up. Be careful.
All right, thanks, Jazz. And be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News. And I'll have your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you at 11:30.